The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Creating a culture of love.
I don't even remember when I started singing. It was always a part of me.
You know, sometimes you think the label's only signing you to shelve you so you're not competing with someone else that's their megastar. That's one thought.
I ended up getting the song on New Music Friday and then blew up, and John Mayer tweeted it, which was crazy. Like, he just heard it and was like, I love this song.
And I used to deal with some artists and athletes, and there was that manager. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they weren't the greatest of people. Grace Weber with a single B.
Single B.
Thank you for joining us in the studio today, coming in on Live Through Love.
Thank you, thank you.
You are an incredibly talented, Grammy award-winning R&B singer and songwriter.
Thank you. This is what I do. Been doing it for a minute, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and how does one become this? Like, what does it take?
Honestly, I always say, like, I don't even remember when I started singing. It was always a part of me. Like, when I was, 3, 4, I was singing around the house. Like, 5, 6, 7, I was singing in the shower all the time. My siblings, like, hated me for it. They're like, get out of the shower, stop singing. And then when I was 7, I had my first performance on a stage for the school talent show. And my teacher came up to me and she was crying. And I was like, why are you crying? Oh, my God. And she's like, because your voice and the music moved me. And I just remember that being this little, like, spark in my head of, like, whoa, like, music is really powerful. And then from there, it's just like, I just wanted to do it. I wanted to sing. I wanted to be on stage. And so there was just these opportunities that I, put myself in and raised my hand to audition and stuff like that. And I think it just led me down this path of my journey.
So you always knew, but that moment that you saw that you can affect and impact emotional experiences in people really was the catalyst.
100%. Yeah. It was like, I specifically remember it. Like, I remember where I was standing on the stage. I remember my teacher coming up and, like, she was a little lower than the stage, and just she looked up at me, and I just, because at first I had never, like, experienced that before. And I was like, did I upset you? What is this? And she was, like, happy, emotional, crying. And it was literally this spark of, like, whoa, that's crazy. And I also remember thinking, like, okay, this is, like, special. This is a gift, and this is something, like, to take care of, and also to be aware that, like, it does affect people. You know what I mean? And, like, to sort of honor that, and also, like, just be aware of, like, how my music, like, what it could mean to people, I guess.
Yeah, I'm picturing little Grace on the stage, spotlight on you. It's all dark, and this teacher looking up at you.
Yeah.
I could imagine not only just how powerful that also felt, right? Like, you're like, whoa, I found my voice right now.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was, like, the first time that I sang in, like, a public setting, like, in front of my classmates. And I sang Celine Dion, Because You Loved Me. I loved Celine Dion. Mariah.
That's gutsy too, right?
Yeah. It was like, if you're going to do Celine Dion for your first performance, you better be ready for some judgment on that one. But yeah, it was like, it was amazing. And I feel grateful too that I remember it so well. Like, that I remember walking out on stage. I remember leaving the stage. Like, I peed in my pants a little bit, but
it's okay. It happens to the best of us.
Happens to the best of us. But yeah, that was like the catalyst for everything, I think. And yeah, lots of steps along the way.
Amazing.
To get here.
And so that was singing. Was there a moment like that when your words, your written word, the words that come from your heart and your soul and your mind, created that same kind of inflection point? Yeah.
I mean, it's actually interesting. So up through, like, junior year of high school, I was a singer, singing cover songs in choir, sang in a gospel choir. Like, I had never really stepped into original music. And super randomly, I met Richard Marx. Do you know who he's like?
I know the name.
You go, whatever you do. Yeah. And he was like, you have an amazing voice, blah, blah, blah. But if you really want to be an artist, like, you need to start writing. And if you write for yourself, like, you're going to not only, create like your own space in the industry, but you're going to find like what you want to say and the uniqueness that is you through your music. And so I got a guitar, or my mom and dad got me a guitar.
You asked for the guitar.
I asked for the guitar.
Yeah.
They got me one. And I wrote my first song. It was called For Emily. And it was my friend's dad had died. And so I wrote this song for her about like getting through that and knowing that she's not alone and stuff like that. And then from there, it wasn't like the best song, but it was, the intention was, a good intention. And then from there, all through college, I was writing and I wrote so many bad songs. I listened back and I told my husband the other day, because we were dating during that time, I'm like, how did you like, let me release this, but also like, how did you like me? Like, so bad. It's like cringe.
She's like, you tolerated this.
Yeah, I'm like, it's so funny. My mom the other day was like, I said something like, oh God, I listened to like my first album from college the other day. Oh, so bad. She was like, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't want to tell you that. I was like, Mom, come on. But
the truth just set her free.
Came out.
Yeah.
I know, for years she's been holding it back. But
imagine if she told you at that moment, hey, sorry, I love you. This sucks.
I don't know what I would have done.
Because it could have been two things. You could either quit and ran away, and that could have been the moment that crushed you.
Yeah.
Or you could have been, I'm going back in the lab.
Yes,
I can do better.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I would have been like super heartbroken or if I would have been, mad at my mom, like, you don't know what you're talking about, type late teens energy. Or if I would have been, I don't know. I'm glad that she didn't tell me, to be honest. I think it's better that she waited. Because also, like, I had to go through those bad albums to get to the good, which is like, everybody says that. But for me, obviously, a lot of people, like, it can be, right away. I think about people like Chance, although high school and, we all have our different journeys. But for me, it kind of took right up to meeting Chance, the rapper, and the Social Experiment, who are the people that I worked with for my debut album, to like really find myself. And it was kind of like that serendipitous, perfect timing of meeting them, being ready to meet them, like them being willing and excited to help me create my sound. And so, writing. Now it's like the writing aspect of it is so important to me. Like, it's equal to the singing. Like, I am so grateful that I met Richard Marx. I should like write him a letter or something.
Yeah. Hey, Richard, shout out to Richard Marx.
Yeah. So
Grace is here because of you. No, not only
a little
because
bit.
of him.
No.
No, it's an inspiration though, right?
I had the teacher, I had Richard Marx. Like,
you
really.
took action, so don't ever take away from that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But Richard, I love you. Maybe you will see this.
Let's send it to him.
Okay, done.
Done
and done.
So you started unpacking a few things that I kind of want to navigate through here, because I put together something, but I want to backpedal a little bit, because the music industry is like an animal. I have a lot of friends in it, and I've heard bad and worse. You don't hear a lot of good usually. But what are your thoughts on Taylor's re-recording of everything? I felt like I read that and I'm like, yo, you're a boss. Like,
so
that's
badass.
a move.
I was so inspired by that. I was like, what a boss. Like, just being like, okay, fine. Like, I'll just re-record that shit.
Yeah.
And that she did it. Like, that takes like a lot of effort and time. And like, it can also be really scary to re-record your hits. Like, people love the hits for a reason. And you were singing it at a certain time. Like, your voice maybe changes a little bit. I haven't actually listened to any of the re-records yet, which I feel like I should. But yeah, I was very much like, yes. And to me, she like leveled up in my, like, the way I felt about her. I was like, okay, now I'm like a fan. Like, I've always been, a fan of her as an artist generally, and like what she's doing. But yeah, that was bad.
Yeah. When I read the whole thing about it, I'm like, you go, girl. Like, that made me a fan too. The fan of that part of everything. Not all her music jives with me. It's not, I'm not a Swiftie. But I could say I am a Swiftie in how she's showing up in the world and like just taking power and owning it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. But where do you see the impact of that? Because I've seen stuff now where they're writing no re-record clauses now indefinitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's so interesting because I feel like on the one hand, like artists are building so much of their fan base and their brand and all these things like before they signed to the label. So I feel like they have more leverage now than ever to like, put things in the contracts that are, I own my masters, or I'm not going to sign whatever for, this amount of time and that I can't re-record. But there's still the fact that the label, they have the money. Like there's a lot of, when I was on Capitol, and when I was thinking about signing to them, it was like, I need this money to do what I want to do. And like, I really thought I can't do this without them, which I feel like is the mindset that I would tell artists now, like, don't have that mindset. Like, go into this process knowing that like, well, and like they work for you. I think that's the thing too that is very like confusing with the label artist dynamic is like you sign and then it kind of feels like you're trying to prove yourself to them, but really like they're supposed to be working on behalf of you. It's a partnership. Like they want to make their money back, but also like, they want to make you successful. So you need to be confident in like the partnership of that versus feeling like you need to please them, which I feel like was where I was at a little bit with them. And now I know I'm like going to all these like things and we're backpedaling and stuff, but now I'm with the Orchard and it's like the best experience I've ever had in the industry. The people that I work with there are so nice, so kind, like just good people. Like I have just a distribution deal with them, but I get, the marketing teams behind it. And Mitch, my main guy there, like he says almost every time we talk, like, we work for you. That, that thing that I wished the label had sort of instilled in the relationship, like the Orchard tells me that. They're like, what do you want us to do? You lead this.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's bad sides, and I've been very grateful to experience this Orchard thing and to have this beautiful team now. I feel like I'm experiencing more good aspects of the industry than bad, which I feel like is such a blessing.
Well, let's unpack some of the bad only for the case of learning and resilience and how it shaped you and who you are. And then obviously give kudos. I'm glad the Orchard's here for you. But what we see, what we've experienced, other friends I've talked to, movies you see, sometimes you think the label's only signing you to shelve you so you're not competing with someone else that's their megastar.
Yeah.
That's one thought. Another thought is they make you feel like they're working for you, but you're really a slave to them.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
for sure.
You're under contact, you're indentured now. And then the thought of like, I need this money because I can't pay my bills, but you forget that it's really just a loan.
100%.
So it's like, how did that make you feel? And early on, you were signed to Capitol Records, and then later you were dropped. So share the emotional impact and how it took a toll on your confidence. And where did you find the strength and perseverance to push through that and continue with your dream?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I got signed to Capitol in 2018. In 2016 is when I started the album with The Social Experiment. I ended up writing a song with Chance on Coloring Book. That was All We Got, and Kanye featured on it. So that led to all these amazing things. I ended up winning a Grammy from that. Like, it was just all these cool things that were happening. And I ended up releasing my first single from that in 2017. And it was one of those things where it just kind of blew up. I actually had a distribution deal with Spotify at the time. I don't know if people know too much about this. They sort of talked about it like very under the radar once the label started getting really mad that this exists. But they were doing direct artists to Spotify. So it was like me and No Name and a few other artists that they were testing it with. So I was directly with the artist team at Spotify, uploading through their system, and they were pitching my songs to their own playlists, which was like insane and incredible. And I kind of get why the labels were like, no, you can't be your own label. Like, but would have been really sick. But so I ended up getting the song on New Music Friday, and then blew up, and John Mayer tweeted it, which was crazy. Like, he just heard it and was like, I love this song. And so that led to Capitol and other labels starting to come to the table. And Capitol was the one that, like, my A&R, Erin Hill, was amazing. Again, super kind person. She was new at Capitol, so I was like one of her early signings. And then Nate Albert was her boss. He was the head of A&R. he came and saw me live. He loved it. And so it was like a great relationship leading into it.
You got a Grammy with Chance and Kanye.
Yeah.
Like, how does that feel?
Crazy. It was crazy. Like the night of the Grammy Awards, you know, that's another moment. Like I'll never forget every aspect, you know, like sitting in the room that I was in with the other producer friends I was with and like watching the Grammys on TV. We were going to like an after party, but we weren't actually at the Grammys, the people that I was with. And when it was announced that Chance won like best hip hop album or whatever, like we all were freaking out. And then we were like, wait, does this mean that like we win a Grammy? Like da da da. And then
Everyone
it was like
listed on that.
yeah.
one.
And then so it was crazy. And then, you know, I got like the big fancy plaque. Like my husband and I are actually moving next month. And so we've been packing everything up. And like I put that thing in so many layers of bubble wrap.
I was gonna say
Literally,
you
I
were
was
gonna
like,
probably drive holding it.
it's like this. I like put sweatshirts around it. Like it's really cool. And I feel like it was also the best experience. Like when Chance and the Social Experiment and everyone around them was working on that project, it was like magic was in the room. Like I got to be there in Chicago when they were finishing the album. It was like the last week they were trying to hit this deadline. And everyone's like sleeping at the studio. Like I'm in the room with No Name and Francis and the Lights is there in Tokyo. And like everybody's whole purpose is this project. Like talk about no ego. Everybody put their ego aside and was focused on the creativity, was focused on believing in Chance, like was putting all of this just like, and it was one of the like coolest experiences I've had in watching people create.
Yeah, that's like your Super Bowl.
It was awesome. And I give so much credit to that crew and like, you know, being a part of it in some way was amazing. And yeah, so winning it from that album and from like knowing how special that was also just like amazing. So yeah, it was everything. I love that thing. Bubble wrap for life.
Yeah, and then you have writing credits for that. You have the whole shebang.
The whole shebang.
There you go.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and that will never be taken from you.
Never.
You know how many people wish they had that?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Something to be very proud of.
Thank you.
So let's shift. Right? That was a huge high. We were just talking about a little bit of a low, but how as an artist do you deal with the self-doubt?
Yeah.
With the universal struggle that a lot of us artists do, right? We're creating and putting our hearts out there for the world to see, and hopefully it translates the way we hope, right?
Yeah.
Because you know when you put something out to get the likes, it's like doesn't land. And when you put
brutal.
something out there that you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just going to do it. And all of a sudden it pops off.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then just going through that, where do you find the strength to push through the doubt? Because a lot of us experience doubt and issues with confidence and self-worth, not just as artists, but in any capacity, whether we're wives or husbands or fathers or mothers or whatever the case is. Like we have these conversations of self-doubt, but sometimes just being in the limelight a little bit more creeps up a little stronger, a little louder.
It's so hard. Like it's a practice, I think. Like when I got dropped from Capitol, like even though, you know, they gave me my master's back and like after all of that, it felt like, oh my God, what next? And like I felt like I was in this hole with the album. And I was like, I have to put this thing out. Like, even if this is the last thing I do, like in order to prove to myself that I can get myself out of a hole, I just had to like push through. And I was depressed. I was super depressed. Like I picture the album as this like boulder that I was trying to push out of this hole. And like every step of that process was doing that. And like there were times, so many times where I was like, you know, I'm not going to find a manager. Like people, if I can't make it on a major label, you know, like I got signed and dropped, like I'm definitely not good enough. Like, and so I think like forcing myself to push through that, because I was like, I knew that I had to push through it, because if I didn't, I would just be broken. And so that was something that I went through at that time. But then, you know, since then, it's like I was having a really hard time before my tour that I just went on, because, we dropped the album, went really well. Like I was on Colors, which was incredible. Like all these beautiful things were happening. Dreams were coming true. And then we dropped the tour to go on, and our ticket sales were low. And we were debating whether to go on tour or not. And I just felt like such a loser because I was like,
yeah,
oh my God, like we can't sell out these venues. Like, I don't know who's going to show up. Like and I want to be so transparent about this because I feel like artists, rightfully so, like it's like kind of a scary thing to talk about, but like we sold like we had 20 tickets sold before, like days before some of the shows. And I was like, this is going to be so like crushing. And then the day of, like we would end up getting, like 80, 100 people in different cities. Like it ended up being okay.
Yeah.
But going through that tour, like before the tour, I was like, this isn't working. I'm not good enough. Like this is a plain sign that it's not working. But then during the tour, like in Atlanta, there were like 85 people there, and every single one of them was singing every word for all the songs. And and I didn't know anyone in the room, and it was an experience like, okay, this is a sign that like this is part of the process. Like, and there's people that were, again, like the teacher, going back to the 7-year-old, like the music is affecting people, and like it is so hard to come to terms with like the numbers, but it's a process, and like the tour was really healing for me because I had to accept that the ticket sales were low. You know what I mean? It's like there was nothing I could do. Like, and so I think forced acceptance was very healing because I just didn't have any other choice. And then on the other side, like I feel way more centered, but I know that I'll have days where like I'll post something and I'll, it won't do well, and I'll kind of feel bad, but I think that I'm learning how to just, again, accept. It's like, well, there's nothing I can do about that. Like it got...
Yeah, what's not in your control, right? You can only control showing up, taking action, making choices. The rest is going to line up the way it lines up. This
100.
might sound like an ignorant question, but because you've said a few times ticket sales were low, but in comparison to what? Because if we're saying to Michael Jackson or Taylor Swift or Beyonce, okay.
Yeah.
But that's not fair, right? So, like, in comparison to your past tour, well, maybe there wasn't one. So maybe this is your bet. You can only do better.
Yeah.
So is it like, are you gauging it on something, or?
I compare myself to other people, like in my world,
that's the tough
all
part.
the time. You know what I mean? And I since tour, I have to keep telling myself like this. Don't hold on to this. Like, don't think now that you have to control the good feeling that you're in. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I need to give myself the space to like, maybe I'll feel like really bad the next day or whatever. But up to the tour, so many times where I'm like comparing myself to other artists who are at my level-ish, you know what I mean? Like not Beyonce, but like friends in the same world, and like seeing their videos of their tours, and it's like packed, and kind of feeling like, oh God, like I'm behind in the race. Like I thought I was at this point. Like, and even honestly, like yesterday was tough because of the Spotify Wrapped thing. I feel like that's a really hard day for people.
I've been seeing everyone post it, or their podcast numbers and everything.
It's hard because on the one hand, it's like really fun and exciting. And on the other hand, like it's like comparison city that you have to try so hard to like not do. And it's hard because you're like, oh God, that person has more like follows and da-da-da. And so it was another like test of me to just be like, okay, you can't control it. You can't control it. Like just accept, like just, and I've been telling myself this like Buddhist phrase of like desire nothing. I don't know if you're into like Buddhism at all, but I got a book.
No, there's a lot of good stuff in Buddhism. No, what I'm just hearing, like I'll extrapolate the lessons that I'm hearing. But comparison is the thief of joy, right? If we compare ourselves to any moment, at any given moment, I'm just going to talk about myself. You can look at my Instagram, you can look at what I'm doing, and people are like, whoa, you are killing it. And I am.
100%.
But if I'm looking at it from that same lens, and I'm looking at where I want to go, I've learned not to compare myself to other artists or anyone else. But I do compare trajectories. Am I on the right path? Are we growing? Are we moving forward? So in my eyes, someone could tell me I'm killing it. I'm like, thank you. In my head, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where my benchmark is. I'm not. But then I got to remind myself, wait, I need to acknowledge the wins.
Yeah.
Because that's where I'm not real strong in acknowledging the wins. I'm like, holy cow, last year I did this and this and this and this. That's amazing. And this year I've done. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. But I always continue to set that bar higher.
Yeah.
But those are the only things we can control.
Yeah.
So it does get tough.
Yeah.
But I always say don't compare, be inspired by.
Yeah.
And then learn. Yeah. What are they doing that I'm not doing? Mm-hmm. What am I doing that they're not doing? Mm-hmm. They could have just had a moment.
Yep.
And my moment didn't happen yet. Yeah. You know, that's how we start thinking about things, or else we're going to lose it. And
yes.
Trust me, I'm in here a lot. Being a creator is very lonely.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize how lonely it can be. So it's important for us to remember those things.
Yeah.
And push forward. So the next tour can only go up. And if your Spotify card said plus and the percentage number,
yeah. Yes.
That's an increase, even if it's 1%.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And like, I feel better hearing you share your vulnerabilities about that, because like I do and know that you are killing it. Like, I'm so grateful to be here, and like I love your shit. And so for me to hear you say that like sometimes you feel those same vulnerabilities of where you want to go, mm-hmm. like I feel a little bit more relaxed. Like I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not alone. Like it really is this amazing thing when artists do share the vulnerabilities, which can be scary because you don't want to like, you know, let people see your scared moments or whatever. Yeah. Like, and so, but I am grateful to people like you who share it, because then you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And that's where my questions are coming from. And you can ask questions back, and I'm happy to be transparent and interject, but this isn't about me, it's about you. So where do you find your inspiration? Where do you tap in? Where do you go?
I think that it like comes to me and I have to like listen to it, kind of. Like I feel like when I'm really burnt out, like less inspiration comes to me when I give myself a break. And when I'm burnt out, I think like, oh, God, I need a break. Like I need like a 6-month break. I don't want to make anything. Like I don't want to do performances. I just need a break. But then I give myself like a week, I start feeling better. And then all of a sudden like song ideas start coming and I picture myself in these performances and music videos and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love this. Like this is so fun. And so it's almost like you just can't get away from it. Like when I'm in a good place, like I feel like if I'm excited about being creative, then the ideas flow, I think. But it's not as much for me. Like I don't often think like I want to write a song about this. Although for this project, it was like I want to write love songs. Like it was a very clear intention. But I usually go into sessions in the studio with this just like an openness of like, let's see what happens. And then like a lyric will come to me, or like a start of a melody. And it's like these breadcrumbs of like, oh, I think this song is about that. And then I start finishing it like after sort of getting a little spark in the moment, I guess. But I actually do have a question for you. Like, how did you do this and like decide that this was going to be your brand? Like, did you do other, you know, logos, designs, paintings, murals before kind of landing in like, I want to focus on love?
So I've been an artist my whole life, and I've drawn and I've this, and as a kid drawing comic book covers like Wolverine and the Pit and Spawn, all these things, or graffiti and things like that. So I've always like been the artist. I took a bunch of different paths. People in the audience know, but quick cliff notes is like I went to school to be an orthopedic surgein. That was my plan.
Oh, that's cool. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I fell into real estate.
Wow. Okay.
Then I went bankrupt, and then I fell into finance.
Okay. Nice.
In finance, I'm depressed 5 years into it. This is the very Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
Then that led me to start just asking questions and doing some work on myself, and I painted my first mural. And that first mural said, "Who will you be?"
Wow.
And I wrote all the answers: leader, responsible, worthy, and all of that. And I was always searching for the answers that I didn't see in the world. Right?
Yeah.
Ads in the news are fear-based. Hey, you're not good enough. Go freeze the fat. Go get a bigger truck. Go do things to make yourself feel better. When I was in real estate, I made a lot of money. It was very materialistic. I found value in that, which, look, I like nice things, but that should not be the defining moment or metric of who you are. Let what you do and how you show up define you. And then if you have a Lamborghini, cool. But don't let the Lamborghini define you. So that's what I was having. I didn't have a Lamborghini, but just for the example. And then that just led continuing. All my work was based in that inspirational, like down the street it says gratitude or do what you love or be humble. Anything can happen, anything can be. And I just kept distilling it down to we operate out of love or we operate out of fear. Art is so subjective, I want to make it as simple as possible. So I use a lot of different things. That says it's a new day right there behind you. The love is in it. So the constraint is love, and that's how I tie it all together. But there's so much more in it. And it's about reminding people to choose love. It's reminding people to live through it and show up. So that's how I ended up here.
I love that story because I feel like knowing what you went through to get here is also like it already affects me and people, but like it is cool to know that you hit those places and then had to get back to that place of like, who am I? Like, what is important? And like bringing focus on the fact that like the ads so much is based on like you are not good enough, so here's the way that you can fix yourself versus like I like exhale in this way that's like okay, like you're good, like you're here, you are love, like I'm gonna like cry right now. It's cool. That's awesome.
And I'm ultimately saying, you know, I had a shirt that I wrote, "Love is the answer," and on the inside I printed in gray, "Yes, you are." Most people didn't know that.
That's cool.
So you're wearing the shirt.
No, I am? Does it say that?
Not this one.
Oh, okay.
Another one. This is the shirt, though. But if you had that shirt on, I'll give you one later.
Yay.
Because I have a small left.
Yes.
You're running around telling the world, love is the answer. But I printed, yes, you are. So I'm actually telling you, the minute you choose love, you're the answer that's going to change the world, and you're love. We're just here to love and be loved.
Yeah.
We complicate everything because we're humans.
Yeah.
So how do you define love?
Love is like pure acceptance of yourself, of others, like of empathy for other people. Like, you know, I may disagree with your choices or like the different things that you do, but I can still have empathy for you and love you because I'm accepting you as a person. And I think like for like the deep love that I have in my life with my husband or family, it's just like we would do anything for each other because we love you. Like we love each other so much. It's just like, it's just that given of, I don't know, love, I guess, pure acceptance and pure caring. I think that's what
it's a good definition. So Paper Flowers is your newest completed album. And I'm an LA native. I'm born and raised here. I'm LA through and through. And you've been here for some time now. And you were walking around like, what are those flowers? Bougainvilleas.
Yeah, I can't
little
even.
Pink ones, which are named the Paper Flowers.
Yeah.
So, and you were telling me earlier that this is your first like album of love songs, which sometimes you think it's funny. I have a line in a book I'm writing that says love is love. Love is not a love song. Not take away from this. It's just the thought of like we think love is a rom-com or a love song or this.
Right.
But in listening through the album, you have different moments. You have one on there that's lonely and it's taking care of yourself. You have different songs on there, but you also, it's almost like your love letter to LA.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hate LA for whatever reason. I'm born and raised here. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also tell people, like, if you're complaining about LA, ask the people that you're complaining about where they're from, because they weren't from here.
Right. Right.
And when you really meet native Angelinos, you're like, oh, you guys are a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. When people tell me they're from LA, like you just saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, I get the, in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, you have the LA thing. And for me, so I grew up in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee. And so I'm very Midwestern and less so now, but I ended up living in New York for like 12, 13 years. And I love New York. I loved living there. I love it so much. My manager says every time we're there, I'm like my most calm. And him and the band is like, get stressed out. And I'm like, this is
very
great.
fast.
And I feel like I fit in, like everyone is like on their grind. There's so many people like going for their dreams. And I love that like the fancy businessman can be on the subway with like the homeless person or unhoused person or the, you know, artist or whatever. Like, it's just this very beautiful city for me. So I became very like, I still am like that. Like, I'm a New Yorker. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love New York. But so when I came here, it's because I was signed to Capitol. And at first I was a little bit like scared, like, oh no, like I identify as New York, you know what I mean? And like now I'm in LA, like, am I gonna like it, you know, whatever. And I think like the beautiful thing that I experienced in LA was the music that I made here and the artists that I got to work with, and the fact that like so many musicians have come here to create, that like it's like the community that exists here is so special. And and so as I was working on the album, I was like, I really want this project to be an experience of me making music in LA, because I also had never really done that with a project. Like, you know, I've released one full album before, but you know, all of the projects that I put together before actually releasing my debut album or the EPs and whatever, like I had never focused on like, what is it like to think about a project existing in like a space or a city. And a lot of my other projects were about resilience and like making it through and almost this like traveling energy. And this one was like, I feel grounded. Yeah. It's like, I want to be grounded in like the love that I have in my life. I want to be grounded in this city. Like, so it was special for me. And so when I was seeing all these flowers, which I still can't say the I should be able to say it. Bougainvillea.
Yeah, I couldn't spell it. B-O-U-N-G.
Like, yeah. Bougainvillea.
Get me out of the spelling. Have me spell that.
Yeah.
I could probably figure it out after a couple of tries. But you know,
there's a U in there.
Autocorrect now. You don't have to spell anything. You don't have to memorize anything.
I know.
But anyway, so
so I saw the flower, and I was with my friend Amy, and I was like, I keep seeing this flower like at all the spaces we're working, like. And I actually put it on like the vision board, like of the kind of colors that I was seeing for the album and the sort of like the creative visual aspect of the project. And I printed out the flower and like put it on there because I saw a lot of like pinks and reds and purples involved in the project. And so I like showed her it and I was like, what is that flower? And we looked it up, and like the, you know, one name is Bougainvillea, but the other name is paper flower. And we were like, oh, that's cool. Paper flower. Like, it just felt this little like buzz moment of like, huh. And that was maybe like a year before we finished it. And as I was going up to the project, like I have a really hard time committing to album titles and stuff. So I was like, oh, should it be Paper Flower? I was kind of like trying out other things. And then like a month or a few weeks before we delivered it, I was like, Paper Flower, this is dope. Like, and so then we did all, you know, these photo shoots around the flowers. And so it was an homage to LA, and also like, for me, just a nice sort of hint towards like the love aspect of it with flowers. And my first project had flowers in the album cover, and which I didn't even think about like until we picked the album cover. I was like, oh, cool, like a beautiful space I'm amongst all these orange flowers. So anyways, paper flower. Yeah.
Looking back sometimes, like connecting the dots, you're like, oh, flower on that cover, flower on this. You never know. Maybe all your covers will always have flowers in them. It just becomes a thing naturally.
Right. Yeah.
So would you say through the resilience, the grit, the grind of all your past music, that led you to falling in love with yourself to make this opportunity that I'm making a love album? And what are some of the themes in it? All levels of love? Like define the journeys of love in there.
Different angles of love, you know, like is the self-love song Lonely, which is like about self-love, you know, internally, but also like physically, like being okay with like my sexuality and stuff like that, which I hadn't really been I've always been, you know, great with my sexuality, but like I'd never shared that through my art, like never really dressed like, you know, super feminine or whatever. And so this project,
so confidence in it,
and I was excited to share that. Like, I wanted like show the sexy parts of my life and
blossomed like that flower.
Yeah, blossomed like the flower. And so there were those Lonely and some other songs like that. And then, you know, there's a song Fallen that's specifically about my husband and meeting him when we were 13 and like dating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we met at summer camp, 13 years old. So there's a line like, just 13, I didn't know what it mean. And so, you know, and just continuing to fall in love with him through all the different phases of our life. And there's songs where it's like, you know, feeling so overwhelmed by all the bullshit. And the chorus is like, please take me away. Like, my love, like, just save me from this insanity. Like, and there's songs about like early love, meeting someone in the club. Like, so yeah, every single song has some sort of point of view about the different ranges of love. Maybe definitely there's songs that are love, like we've talked about. And then songs where love songs aren't love. You know what I mean? Like, where it's sort of a more passive love, or maybe it's not love, you know? So
And that's the whole premise is like, I say love is undefinable. It's
Yeah.
whatever you need and whatever the moment is. The dictionary says it's a strong feeling of affection.
huh, interesting.
That's it. I'm
Okay.
like, yo, that is not
It is
love.
very light.
That is not the definition. But no, that's good because, you know, there are so many ways to apply it, and you're using it in many different aspects, you know, and the lust of love, meeting the guy or the gal in the club, that's lust. Lust is first. Then it could turn into love.
Yeah.
It's still in the realm of love. And
Yeah.
then confidence in yourself, taking care of yourself, not self-love only with meditation, but with alone time.
Yes, you gotta have your little
All of it.
special time.
Exactly. And then the loves of your life. And
Yeah.
then, you know, I have children, so a child, another one on the way. But
Yay,
that's a whole,
congrats.
I mean, you want to feel a whole nother level of love, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So this album, you know, you talk about resilience, you talk about love now, moving forward. Obviously, music is very cathartic and therapeutic, not only for the artist creating it, but for the people listening to it, right? And would you say, looking back at your discography, right? You just told me earlier that first album, you're like, oof. Would you see not only the maturity in your talent and everything, but the maturity in your emotional evolution or your evolution as a human being? And what does that look like? How does it make you feel just looking back at that?
Yeah. Yes, totally. Like, I think that getting to this project was really cool to me because it probably is the first time in my life where I do feel that grounded feeling of like confidence, being happy with myself, like feeling like, again, just that like kind of relief feeling of like, not everything has to be a struggle. Not everything has to be a constant, like, you're not good enough battle. And I think like seeing that growth from A Beautiful Space to Paper Flower, like A Beautiful Space, I think about that as like again, like that boulder up the hill, like through the fires, like I'm gonna get through this. Feels like heaven is like, there is another side to this. Like, you know, there's a lot of songs on the project that I just, it feels kind of like this to me, like this. And I think that at that point, you know, it's funny, I was actually reading a lot of journals that I wrote during that point as I'm packing and looking at all these things. And there's so much writing about like, you know, today, like I feel like I can't do this anymore. Like, how do I keep going? Like, and just digging to find it. Like, I think that's, you just got to keep swimming down to keep finding that flame. Cause I feel like if you are alive and an artist or just any human being, like there's always that little flame there.
Yeah.
And so,
Make sure you keep it lit.
yeah, and just fan it. And so seeing that I went from that to this is like, I feel proud of myself. And also, I don't even know if proud of myself is the right word, but just like grateful, I guess, that I'm here and that like, okay, like there was another side to it. Like, feels like heaven, you know, talking about the other side. Like I see that exists. And so now when I'm going through tough times, it's like, okay, I went through the tough time. I saw that there's another side. So I can be even more resilient next time, having the experience of a life going through hard things, you know, dealing with major depression in my life, massive anxiety, like had to go on medicine to be able to like combat that. And so being here is like, okay, cool. Like peace, like just feeling just really happy about that, I guess.
Yeah. And that's the thing, the battle with depression and mental health and everything. You don't fix it. It doesn't go away. It's continuing forward momentum and choosing, as I say, leaning into love. Because trust me, I have my bad days. I slip into things all the time. The emotional roller coaster is real.
Yeah.
But just reminding everyone, the listeners and all that, like, hey, we have our bad days. But look at all the good you've done.
Yep.
And let's keep going from there.
100%. And that's why, too, like, I always try to keep that thought about practice. Like, even when you get to those places of peace, grounding, calm, like if you have a bad day and think, oh no, I lost the peace, or like now I'm back to where I was, like, it's less about trying to control the peace and more about understanding, like, okay, there's gonna be ups and downs. I'll have days where I think that I'm a failure, and but hopefully as you grow and practice, there'll be less days where you think that, or it'll feel easier to be aware, like, okay, I feel like this, but I felt like this before, and I can be aware that, like, this is gonna pass, I guess. So
You also have more tools
yes,
and lessons
yes,
learned. So
100%.
I think a failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. And if you learn from it, you make it a success, because in the future, you're going to succeed from that.
100%.
So looking at that.
Yeah.
So as we wind this thing down, you snuck in there, met my husband at 13. I mean, you're only 21, but like, how does that even work? I can't imagine being with someone that long, but like at 13, how did you know?
I mean, so we started dating like freshman year of college, but when we met, like, again, talk about these like moments that you never forget. Like, I was sitting in the dining hall at camp, and like I remember him like walking in, and just this feeling of like, oh my God, who is that boy? And just having such a crush on him. Like, I had the biggest crush on him when we were 13. Like, never would have thought that he had a crush on me. Like, and so like through high school, we were friends. We were both like camp counselors at this camp. And like, I had a boyfriend in high school that was like someone that I went to school with. He had a girlfriend. Like, it was just never a thing that I actually thought would be realized. But like, I just had the biggest crush on him. And
You both were avoiding the inevitable.
100%. Well, and that's like when we were seniors in high school, he like stayed at my place when we had my parents' house. We had like a break from the camp counselor day. He needed somewhere to stay. I was like, oh, you can come with me or whatever. And like that night I was like, I've always had a crush on you. He. He was like, I've always had a crush on you. And then from that point it was like, oh my God. And then we went to prom together. But we didn't start dating until the end of freshman year of college, because it was one of those things where it's like, whoa, like we kind of see being together forever. Like, we're best friends. We like have the biggest crushes on each other. We love each other. Like, and so I think it was kind of scary, especially for him, to be like, okay, now we're going to start dating freshman year of college. And like, and so we kind of like pushed it off and whatever. And then at the end of freshman year, it's just kind of like, is this going to be a thing or not? And then we're like, let's just try it. And then from then on, it was, together since then. And it's
forever.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He is like a Buddha person, in no ego. Like, I always say, like, it's more, I mean, I don't want to give myself like no credit, but like him being him, I think like was a rock throughout everything. And
how do you manage that with the life you're trying to build? Or like, what if one day, or when you're touring like one of the greats? I won't name one because we don't want to compare. How has that always been a thing? Because to him, it's about just supporting you. I mean, he's wired different. He's not an artist or a creative. He's more.
He is creative, but he's a creative director and a writer, copywriter, but not in a way of like,
less of a performer, but more.
Oh yeah, not a performer. But yeah, he like is supportive. He never makes me feel bad when I travel. Like, he's a very like, he loves traveling too. Like, we just like see the world the same, and we never have held each other back. I think that's why like we've been able to grow together. Like, I think I always kind of talk, like I say, it's like jellyfish sometimes. Like, there's times where we're both kind of, okay, we need to grow ourselves a little bit, and then we come back. And like, I think because we're patient and like accepting of each other completely, it's just been like a beautiful thing. But yeah, I was touring all of November, and he's just like, he doesn't get jealous. Like, he just is cool. I don't know. And if he wasn't like that, I don't think it would work, like
it'd be like the old manager.
Exactly. There's no
Doesn't work.
control issues. Like, yeah.
And that's the balance. You have examples all over your life.
Yeah.
So last couple questions that we wind this down. First one being, any words of inspiration or advice for the little Grace?
Be patient. I remember when I was like 25, someone told me, this songwriter in the industry, it was like, you might not make it until May. And I also hate that phrase, but we can talk about that another time. But you might not be having the career you want until you're like 35. And I was like, oh my God, no. If I'm not like at this point that I want by the time I'm like 28, I will have failed, And now I'm 35, and it's like, I'm so happy. I'm doing the things that I want to do, and I just want younger artists to, like, especially women, like, to take that in, like, really take it in if you can. Like, I know it's hard to believe that, but like, your journey is your journey. I had no clue that I was going to meet the Social Experiment, that I was going to win a Grammy, that I was going to be on Capitol, that was going to lead me to this tough place, and then I'd be on Colors, which is a dream forever. Like, every single step gets you to where you're supposed to be. And it's cliche, but it's so true. And, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Like, I had times where I was working with people where I didn't trust my gut, and it ended up not working out. And I think that we all have, like, more instinct on things than I think we do.
Yeah.
It's
we
like
don't
when
tap in or lean into it enough.
Yes. So lean into that and have fun. Have fun. Give yourself the wins, like you said. Like, embrace that. Like,
Be
you get
patient.
your win and hold on to that. Like, don't, a week later be like, now I do the next thing, which is what I do all the time.
Yeah, a lot of us do that. But on the patient side, I want to add one thing, because in the industry, we feel it. And as we get older, we feel it. Ageism. And I know women feel it because they have this clock of, I need to have a kid by X.
Right.
I'm married. I have my wife. She's got her, in her head, like, I need XXX by this time because I'm getting old. Like, we think about these things. I think about these. Am I too old now? Like, what if I was 10 years old? But what does that even mean? Especially if we're healthier now, older, and living longer.
Yeah.
But the industry is the industry, and there is ageism, and we're going to get old. I have gray hairs in my beard now, right? We're going to get wrinkles. We're going to get things. In the realm of being patient and not to rush, where do you add to that a little bit deeper for this young, young, hopeful artist?
Yeah. I think I saw this like tweet the other day that was like, it's so cool seeing a lot of like R&B women, specifically the space that I'm in, like being older, like in their 30s, late 30s, whatever. And someone commented like, yeah, it makes sense because R&B and just music, like a lot of times comes from deep experiences, deep love. Like if you're going to be singing in the rain, you got to know, you got to know that. And a lot of times that comes with experience and age. I mean, that's why like a lot of the, classic soul singers, they're like in their 40s because damn, like you need to feel that. And definitely like you can feel that at any age, but I'd say the deep thing that you can be excited about as an artist is like, oh God, I'm making this art now. I can't imagine the type of art I'm going to make when I'm 35, when I'm 40, because of the well that I get to pull from. Whew.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
Yep.
Great answer. Final question. Grace, how do you define living a life through love?
Making time for the people you love, Like, I feel like as you live your life, it can be tough sometimes to, like, remember to take time to give love and receive love from the people you love. Like, because we can be so career focused and so, like, you know, spending all hours of the day and night creating, you know, our art and staying at the studio until midnight, 1, 2 a.m. Like, I think when I started shifting that perspective a little bit around, like, okay, I'm loving my career, I'm loving making this, but, like, I need to, like, I love Dane, I love my husband, like, I need to spend, you know, morning to night with him more days maybe than I'm at the studio. Like, just maybe, like, making sure that you don't look back and you're like, oh, I didn't spend time with people that I love. So I think for me, that's what living through love is.
Yeah, I'm hearing remember to live.
And remember to live. Yes. Oh, take off the blinders. That's what I also say. Like, get those, like, horse blinders on and just take them off.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, so fun.
Yeah, look left, look right, look up, look down.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you?
GraceWeber1b.com, GraceWeber.com, Instagram, you know, Spotify, Apple, all the places.
Single B Weber, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you. This is awesome. I feel healed. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.